At 4:17 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon, a man sat down at his kitchen table, opened his laptop, and typed 9 words into Google that would seal his fate forever. Those 9 words were, "How to get away with murder." 1 hour later, his wife was gone, vanished into thin air. No calls, no texts, no trace. And when detectives finally sat him down and asked him about that Google search, his answer was so strange, so utterly unbelievable, that it made the entire country stop and ask the same question. Did he really think he would get away with it? This case comes out of a quiet, suburban neighborhood in Charlotte, North Carolina, the kind of place where people leave their front doors unlocked and kids ride their bikes until the streetlights come on. It's not the kind of place you expect to become the center of a national true crime obsession, but that's exactly what happened when a woman named Lisa Thompson disappeared on the evening of September 12th, and every single clue pointed directly at the one person who should have been the most devastated by her disappearance: her husband, Mark Thompson. Lisa and Mark had been married for 11 years. To the outside world, they looked like the perfect couple. Mark was a regional sales manager for a pharmaceutical company. Lisa was a third-grade teacher, beloved by her students and respected by her colleagues. They had a beautiful 4-bedroom house, 2 golden retrievers, and a joint bank account with a healthy savings balance. On Facebook, they were that couple, the one always posting vacation photos from the Outer Banks, anniversary dinner selfies, and captions like, "Still crushing on this guy after 11 years. Everyone who knew them said the same thing. They were solid. They were happy. At least, that's what everyone thought. But behind closed doors, things were cracking. And not just a little. Lisa had recently discovered something that shattered the foundation of their marriage. She found out that Mark had been secretly funneling money out of their joint savings account for months. We're talking about nearly $60,000. Gone. Transferred out in small, careful increments to a separate account that Lisa knew nothing about. When she confronted him, Mark broke down. He confessed that he had developed a serious gambling addiction. Online sports betting mostly. He told her he had been chasing losses for over a year, convinced that the next big win would fix everything and he could quietly put the money back before she ever noticed. But the hole just kept getting deeper. And now, Lisa knew. This revelation hit the marriage like a wrecking ball. Lisa felt betrayed, not just because of the money, but because of the lies, the months and months of lies. She told her sister in a text message that she didn't even know who she was married to anymore. She said she felt like the man she had been sleeping next to every night was a complete stranger. And that is a terrifying feeling, to look at the person you built your entire life with and realize you never really knew them at all. Still, Lisa wasn't the type of woman to walk away without trying. She told Mark she was willing to work on things, but she had 2 non-negotiable conditions. First, he had to get professional help for his gambling addiction. Immediate therapy, no excuses. Second, she wanted full transparency on every single account, every single password, every single dollar. No more secrets. Mark agreed. He told her he would do anything to save the marriage. He even booked a therapy session for the following week and sent her a screenshot of the confirmation email. Lisa started to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could get through this. She was hopeful, but hope can be a dangerous thing, especially when you place it in the wrong hands. On the morning of September 12th, everything seemed normal. Lisa left for school at 7:15 a.m., coffee in hand, waving goodbye to Mark in the driveway. She taught her 3rd-grade class all day. A coworker later told police that Lisa seemed a little distracted during lunch, checking her phone more often than usual, but nothing that raised any serious alarm bells. She left school at 3:30 p.m. and made the 20-minute drive home. Her car was captured on a neighbor's security camera pulling into the driveway at 3:52 p.m. That is the last confirmed sighting of Lisa Thompson. She walked into that house and simply never came back out. At 4:17 p.m., Mark's laptop history shows a new search. The words are typed out carefully, one by one. How to get away with murder. He didn't just search it once, either. He clicked on multiple articles. He spent approximately 12 minutes scrolling through results, clicking on a list of common mistakes criminals make when trying to dispose of a body, and even a section about police interrogation tactics and what to expect if you become a suspect. 12 minutes. Let that sink in. At a time when his wife had just arrived home, when she was somewhere in that very house, Mark Thompson was at the kitchen table researching how to commit the perfect crime. Just after 5:30 p.m., Mark's phone pinged a cell tower near a wooded area about 15 miles outside of town. His car's GPS system, which investigators would later retrieve, placed him in that exact location for approximately 23 minutes. 23 minutes in the middle of nowhere at dusk. He then drove back home, arriving at around 6:15 p.m. At 7:30 p.m., he did something very interesting. He called Lisa's mother. He said, and I quote, "Have you heard from Lisa? She never came home from work, and I'm starting to get worried." He was starting to get worried. He was starting to get worried, yet he waited over an hour after returning from a mysterious trip to the woods to make that call. He didn't call hospitals. He didn't call the police. He called her mother, almost as if he was building a narrative. The concerned husband, the man who just wanted to find his wife. Lisa's mother immediately panicked. She told Mark to call the police right away. He did, but the 911 call is strange. You can listen to it online, and I encourage you to, because it's one of those recordings that just makes your skin crawl. His voice is flat, calm, too calm. He tells the operator that his wife is missing, that she never came home, and that this isn't like her at all. The operator asks him when he last saw her. He says this morning. She asks if they had been fighting. He pauses. A long, heavy pause. Then he says, "Well, we've been going through some things, but nothing that would make her just disappear." He volunteers the information about the gambling and the missing money, almost immediately, unprompted. Most innocent people don't start listing their motives to a 911 operator within the first 60 seconds. But Mark did. It was like he was trying to control the story from the very first moment. When police arrived at the house, they found Mark sitting on the front porch steps, head in his hands. He looked up and said something that made the lead detective's stomach turn. He said, "I know how this looks. I know I'm going to be the prime suspect. That's what always happens, right? The husband did it." The detective made a mental note. Mark had already started planting the idea that he was being unfairly targeted before anyone had even accused him of anything. That's a classic manipulation tactic, and it was working, at least in the beginning. The early news coverage painted Mark as a broken man being wrongly vilified. He gave a tearful interview to a local news station, looking directly into the camera and begging Lisa to come home. "Please," he said, his voice cracking, "whatever is going on, we can fix it. Just come home." The public ate it up. People left comments on the news station's Facebook page saying, "Leave this poor man alone. He's clearly devastated." But behind the scenes, detectives were building a very different picture. They had pulled Mark's internet history. They had found that Google search, and what they found next, made the search even more damning. Mark hadn't just searched for how to get away with murder. In the days leading up to Lisa's disappearance, he had made a series of other searches that, when pieced together, formed a chilling timeline. He had looked up how long it takes for a body to decompose in different soil types. He had researched whether police dogs could detect human remains underwater. He had even Googled the question, "Can you be convicted of murder without a body?" All of this before Lisa vanished. Before she was even a missing person, Mark Thompson was preparing for something. And the only question was whether he had actually gone through with it. The first major crack in Mark's story came when investigators retrieved the GPS data from his car. Remember that trip to the wooded area, the 23 minutes at dusk? Detectives went out to that location. It was a remote, heavily overgrown area near a creek. They brought cadaver dogs. The dogs alerted almost immediately near a patch of freshly turned soil. Investigators began to dig. And as they dug, the whole neighborhood held its breath. I'll tell you what they found in that shallow grave, and how a single piece of evidence would completely unravel Mark Thompson's web of lies in part 2. If you're still with me right now, let me know in the comments what you would have done if you were the detective on this case. Would you have arrested Mark the moment you found that Google search? Or would you have waited to build a stronger case? I read every comment, and I love hearing your theories. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss Part 2, because the evidence they found in that grave changed everything. Trust me, you're going to want to see what happens next. The shallow grave in the woods had already told detectives a story of horror, but it was what they found inside that transformed this case from a suspicious disappearance into something far darker. The cadaver dogs had led them to the exact spot, a patch of earth that looked slightly darker than the soil around it, recently disturbed. The officers began to dig slowly, carefully, each shovel of dirt bringing them closer to a truth that everyone already felt in their bones. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and decay. And then, a gloved hand went up. The lead detective signaled everyone to stop. They had found something. It wasn't a body. Not yet. The first thing they pulled from the ground was a pair of women's glasses, tortoiseshell frames, slightly bent, covered in dirt. One of the lenses was cracked. An officer carefully placed them into an evidence bag, and later that day, Lisa's sister confirmed what everyone already knew. Those were Lisa's glasses. She was practically blind without them. She never went anywhere without those glasses. The fact that they were buried in a shallow grave in the middle of the woods told a story more clearly than any witness ever could. Lisa Thompson did not walk away from her life. She did not run off to start over. She was taken there, and she never left. As the excavation continued, more items emerged from the earth. A single women's sneaker, size 7, the same size and brand that Lisa wore. A torn piece of fabric that matched the blouse Lisa had been wearing in the school security footage that day. And then, something that made even the most seasoned homicide detective step back and take a deep breath. They found strands of long brown hair, matted and tangled, caught in the roots of the disturbed soil. DNA testing would later confirm what everyone already knew in their hearts. The hair belonged to Lisa Thompson, but still, no body. Despite days of digging and searching the surrounding area with grid patterns and cadaver dogs, they could not locate Lisa's remains. It was as if whoever buried those items had moved the body somewhere else, or perhaps the animals in those woods had done what nature does. The absence of a body complicated things legally, but it did not stop the walls from closing in on Mark Thompson. In fact, it was something he said voluntarily, without being prompted. That became the final nail in his coffin. During one of his interviews with detectives, Mark was asked a routine question about the night Lisa disappeared. They wanted to know if he had any idea where she might have gone, if she had any secret spots she liked to visit when she was stressed. Mark shook his head. He said he had no idea. But then, completely unprovoked, he added something that made the detective's ears perk up. He said, "You know, I've been doing some research, and I know you can't convict someone of murder without a body. I'm not stupid. I know my rights." The detective stayed completely calm. He just nodded and asked Mark to clarify what kind of research he had been doing. Mark immediately backpedaled. He said he had just been watching a lot of true crime documentaries since Lisa went missing, trying to understand the investigation process. He said he wanted to know what the police were legally allowed to do. But the damage was done. Mark had just revealed that he knew a very specific legal fact, one that perfectly aligned with the Google search he had made before Lisa vanished. Remember that search? Can you be convicted of murder without a body? He had researched it. And then, weeks later, he accidentally quoted it back to detectives during an interrogation. It was a slip of the tongue that spoke volumes. Innocent people don't study the legal loopholes of homicide prosecution while their wife is missing. Innocent people are too busy falling apart, too consumed with grief and desperation to be researching courtroom technicalities. But Mark wasn't falling apart. Mark was strategizing. The arrest happened on a gray Wednesday morning, exactly 3 weeks after Lisa disappeared. Police pulled Mark over on his way to work. He did not seem surprised. He did not fight. He simply placed his hands on the steering wheel and said, "I figured this was coming." Later, during the trial, prosecutors laid out a devastating timeline. They showed the jury the Google searches, the GPS data, the buried evidence in the woods, and a mountain of financial records that revealed Mark had recently taken out a life insurance policy on Lisa worth $1 million. $1 million. The policy had been taken out just 6 weeks before she disappeared. Mark had signed the paperwork electronically from his laptop, the same laptop he used to search how to get away with murder. The motive was no longer a mystery. Mark Thompson was drowning in gambling debt. His marriage was crumbling, and he saw only one way out. He would cash in on his wife's life and disappear from his financial nightmare. The defense tried everything. They argued that the Google searches were taken out of context, that Mark had been researching for a fictional novel he was thinking about writing. They said the shallow grave contained no body because no body existed, and that Lisa could still be alive somewhere, perhaps having fled the marriage on her own terms. They painted Mark as a flawed man. Yes, a gambling addict and a liar, but not a killer, not a monster. But the jury didn't buy it. How could they? The digital trail was too precise, too damning. Every click, every search, every mile driven was recorded. In the modern world, you leave fingerprints everywhere you go, even when you think you are being careful. The verdict came after just 4 hours of deliberation. Guilty, first-degree murder. Mark Thompson was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As the verdict was read, Lisa's family held each other and wept. Her mother gave a victim impact statement that broke the hearts of everyone in that courtroom. She said, "My daughter spent her life teaching children to be kind and honest, and the man who was supposed to love her the most took her from us because he valued money more than her life." She looked directly at Mark and said, "You didn't get away with it, and you never will." Lisa Thompson's body has never been found. To this day, her family holds out a sliver of hope that one day someone will stumble upon her remains and they can finally give her a proper burial. But in the eyes of the law, justice has already been served. Mark Thompson sits in a prison cell, and every single day he has to live with the knowledge that his own arrogance, his own belief that he could outsmart the system, is what put him there. He thought he could Google his way to the perfect crime. Instead, he left a digital trail so bright and so undeniable that it led investigators directly to his doorstep. And here's the thing that really sticks with me about this case. It's not just the horror of what he did. It's the sheer stupidity. It's the arrogance. To sit at your kitchen table while your wife is alive and breathing in the same house and type into a search engine the words, "how to get away with murder." That is not the act of a criminal mastermind. That is the act of a desperate, foolish man who had watched one too many crime dramas and thought real life worked the same way. But real life has consequences. Real life has digital footprints. Real life has neighbors with security cameras and cars with GPS trackers and detectives who have seen it all before. This case also forces us to ask a deeply uncomfortable question. How well do we ever really know the people we love? Lisa Thompson thought she was married to a good man, going through a rough patch. She had no idea that the man sleeping beside her was methodically planning her death, that he was researching soil decomposition rates while she graded spelling tests in the next room. It's a terrifying thought, but it's also a reminder to trust your instincts. Lisa's sister said that in the weeks before she disappeared, Lisa had started to seem uneasy. She couldn't put her finger on it, but something felt off. She never got the chance to act on that feeling. So if you take anything away from this story, let it be this. If your gut is telling you something is wrong, listen to it. Don't rationalize it away. Don't convince yourself you're being paranoid. Your instincts are there to protect you. Thank you for sticking with me through this entire case. It's a heavy one, I know, but these stories matter because they remind us of the real human beings behind the headlines. Lisa Thompson was not just a name in a true crime video. She was a daughter, a sister, a teacher, a woman who deserved decades more of life. And Mark Thompson stole that from her, but he did not get away with it. And that is because of the meticulous work of detectives who refused to give up, and because of a single Google search that he was too arrogant to realize would be his undoing. If this story impacted you the way it impacted me, please take a second to hit that like button. It really does help more people hear Lisa's story. And if you're not subscribed yet, consider this your invitation to join the community. I cover cases just like this every single week. Cases that make you think, that make you feel, and that remind you that the truth is always stranger and darker than fiction. Leave a comment down below. I want to know what you think about Mark Thompson's sentence. Was life without parole enough? Or do you think he deserved something different? And if you have a case you want me to cover next, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Until next time, stay sharp, trust your gut, and never stop asking questions. I'll see you in the next video.